Hey guys, DC Network here, coming at you with another video. A few weeks back, when Warner Brothers Discovery announced that they're renaming Max back to HBO Max, I mentioned in that video that I think this is the first step of them moving towards some sort of merger, sale, or split, and that I wanted to discuss that in a future video. If you haven't seen my video on me talking about Max being renamed to HBO Max, I'll leave a card above to that video because I go in depth on that whole debacle there. But today in this video, I wanted to discuss what Warner Brothers is preparing to do, because they are preparing to split the company. There's been rumors swirling all throughout this month that Warner Brothers Discovery is preparing to do a split of the company, and basically this is all coming from CNBC, who's reporting that Warner Brothers Discovery is preparing to split the company into two distinctive halves, one of them being all of the linear cable networks that Warner Brothers Discovery owns. So think of your TNTs, your TBSs, your CNNs, your Cartoon Networks of the world. They will all form one brand new entity, one brand new company, and then Warner Brothers Studios and HBO Max are going to form their own separate entity, their own separate company. As for the naming of these companies, who knows what that's going to look like, but nevertheless, I find it rather interesting that they are going to be going down this route and that they're going to be splitting the company into two distinctively different halves. This isn't unheard of in the media landscape in general, or just honestly within the corporate world in general. A lot of companies that have the same given name, like for example Verizon has Verizon Wireless and they have Verizon Fios. Those are two different companies. Despite the fact that they both have Verizon in the name, they are not the same entity. So essentially this would be something like this. This will be Warner Brothers Corporation, which is the cable networks, and then maybe you have Warner Brothers Studios, which is going to be Warner Brothers Studios and HBO Max. This isn't unheard of, but why are they going down this route? Why is this what they are deciding to do? If you guys recall, ever since the Warner Brothers Discovery merger first happened, everyone was saying this is going to lead up to yet another merger or yet another sale, and the one company that was being tied to Warner Brothers Discovery from the get-go was Comcast. People were saying Comcast has interest in buying Warner Brothers Discovery once that period passes where they can't explore another sale or another merger, which I believe was in March of 2024. People were saying Comcast was going to swoop in and they were going to buy Warner Brothers Discovery. Now obviously that hasn't happened yet, so why exactly are they exploring a split as opposed to another merger or a sale of the company? And I think in all honesty what they're trying to do here is they're splitting the company to make it more lucrative for a potential buyer or a potential merger to happen. Now what I mean by this is essentially right now as it stands today, Warner Brothers Discovery is an absolutely massive company. They have Warner Brothers Studios, right? They have the whole Max, soon to be HBO Max streaming service sector of their business. They have the plethora of cable networks, some of which I mentioned before, like Cartoon Network, TNT, TBS, CNN, etc. They have a lot within the Warner Brothers Discovery umbrella that if a company like, for example, just throwing this name out there, let's say Disney decides they want to buy Warner Brothers Studios. They decide, hey, we want to buy Warner Brothers, we want to own the Looney Tunes, we want to own all these Cartoon Network properties, we want to do a lot with these brands. They decide to purchase it. They are never going to get that passed by the FCC or any antitrust agencies, because that would then be a monopoly. Disney would become a monopoly if they were to own all of Warner Brothers Discovery, right? This is just an example. I'm not saying Disney's going to buy out Warner, but just hear me out on this. So essentially, by them divesting some of their assets, by them splitting the company into two separate entities, it makes it much easier for a merger or acquisition to happen, because it's no longer this massive conglomerate that is Warner Brothers Discovery. Now it's two separate entities. So if you're interested in Warner Brothers Pictures, if you're interested in buying, Warner Brothers Animation, Cartoon Network Studios, if you're interested in their streaming service HBO Max, you can buy all of that without getting involved with all of these cable networks that they own, all of these linear networks and channels that they own within their umbrella, because those will now be a part of a separate entity. Something very similar happened when Disney bought Fox. If you guys recall, a few years back, Disney bought Fox. Yes, now they own The Simpsons, now they own X-Men again, which is why we've seen some of the X-Men, seep into the MCU over at Disney. But one thing that happened when that acquisition was going through the process of getting approved is Fox ended up divesting some of their assets in order to form a new company, the Fox Corporation. The assets that were divested that formed this new company were Fox, the broadcast station, Fox News, Fox Sports, amongst a few other entities. Why did they do this? Because the FCC and all the antitrust agencies that had to approve the Disney acquisition of Fox were not going to approve it if the broadcast station Fox, along with Fox News and Fox Sports, were included. Why is that? Well, example, Disney owns ABC. There is a law out there where one company cannot own two broadcast stations, so they cannot own both Fox and ABC. Also, Disney owns ESPN. If they were to then own Fox Sports, they were arguing that this could be a monopoly on the national sports broadcasting industry if they own both Fox Sports and ESPN. So what happened? They ended up making a separate company. They ended up splitting off those brands from the larger Fox umbrella in order to have that acquisition go through. I think the exact same thing is happening here with Warner Brothers Discovery right now. If this report is true, and the person who made the report as CNBC said that this could be happening any day now, this is something that's going to happen in the not too distant future. If this ends up being the case, what's probably going to happen shortly thereafter this is we're going to hear discussion about another merger or acquisition with Warner Brothers. They are divesting these assets into two separate companies for a reason. It's not just because, oh, we think it's more streamlined this way. If we have these as two separate companies, we can have the proper people in place at each entity, and we can streamline the process and really get these companies off the ground running again. No, that's not why they're doing this. They are doing this to explore a potential sale or another merger, which I find absolutely fascinating, because if you guys recall, back when Warner Brothers Discovery first happened and all of these rumors were circulating that, oh, Comcast has interest in buying the company, you know, they're going to explore another merger or another sale to save themselves from the $55 billion worth of debt they had when this merger first happened. David Zaslav, the CEO of Warner Brothers Discovery, came out there and said, no, we're not doing that. We are not exploring a sale. We are not going to explore another merger. We want to be sustainable on our own. This is a ship that we're going to right. We are not going to have someone bail us out yet again. That was all a load of malarkey, because that's exactly what they're doing here. They are splitting off their assets. They are going to split the company into two separate entities to make it more lucrative for a potential sale or merger to happen. How does that distribute the debt? How much of the debt goes to Warner Brothers, Studios and Max? How much of the debt goes to the linear cable networks? I don't know how they'll divvy all that up, but nevertheless, it makes it much more lucrative for a potential buyer to come in and see, oh, you have these two separate entities, because right now Warner Brothers Discovery has, I believe, between $34 and $36 billion worth of debt left. So let's just say it's $34 billion just for argument's sake here. So they have $34 billion worth of debt, right? If a company is coming in to buy Warner Brothers Discovery right now, they're like, whoa, if we're buying this company, if we're putting forth all the capital to first off just buy this company, because it's not going to be free to get it, right? You're going to have to pay a lot of money to get this entity. We're not only going to be paying all this money to get Warner Brothers Discovery, but we're also going to be taking on $34 billion worth of debt. Does that make sense for anyone to do? No, it doesn't. So what they're doing here, let's just say hypothetically the debt splits right down the middle. Let's say Warner Brothers Studios and Max, that newfound company, that gets $17 billion worth of debt, and the linear cable networks, they get $17 billion worth of debt. So if you're a potential buyer and you're like, I really only want Warner Brothers Studios, I don't really care about their cable networks, cable's dying, why would I want to have TNT, TBS, Cartoon Network? I don't want any of that. I just want the studio, so I'm going to buy that, and instead of looking at $34 billion worth of debt, I'm only going to be looking at $17 billion worth of debt, which is a lot more manageable for me and my business to come out of. That's exactly what they're doing here, and it's going to be fascinating to see over the next few months what exactly comes of this, when this split actually becomes official, and if, or I should say when, a potential merger or acquisition comes for one of those two newly formed companies, because it is coming. They're not just doing this for fun. They're doing this for a reason, and that reason is to make it more lucrative for a potential buyer to come in and get Warner Brothers Studios or to buy their linear cable networks. Whatever you're interested in buying, we will make it work for you. Anyways, let me know down in the comment section below what you guys think about all this. What do you guys think about the fact that apparently Warner Brothers Discovery is going to be splitting into two separate entities? Are you surprised by this, or were you expecting something like this to happen all along? Because Warner Brothers Discovery on its own clearly isn't sustainable, as it seems like no one knows what they're doing over there. If you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to see more content like this from DC Network. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.